So, hey, y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I'm drinking some LaCroix right now. I was actually one Corona into the evening and enjoying myself. And then, of course, Elon had to drop this Optimus bot walking around the factory. I assume that's in Palo Alto, I would guess.
That's what I'm assuming too.
Yeah,
I don't see enough information to say otherwise. And
right.
I think it's Palo Alto. I'm not sure if Texas has the same fire codes as far as fire extinguishers, because I saw a couple there. So
Yeah,
like, oh, okay, maybe it's there.
So, well, also it would make sense because it's a naked bot, as we're going to find out. So I am going
Which is
to
interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to add this guy to, yeah. So this was the interesting part, was we got to see him, and I'm going to go ahead and play the video first, a couple of times through so people can see him walk. I, watched this with the eye of somebody who's taught character animation for decades, literally. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And it's really funny because of course it has to be right because it's physical. So of course it has to walk properly, but I'm watching it like, oh, that's got good body weight. It's got all these other good things. You can still see some oscillation in it, just very, very subtle stuff, but just little jiggle back and forth oscillations as it walks. Weirdly enough, there's that yellow tag on the side. You can also see a tether that's on its back that's hanging down that would normally be connected to, that clearly they removed it from the tethering to allow it to walk. We can also now immediately tell that those shins or whatever, the lower leg parts, are definitely structural since the skin is off the sky, but they're still there. So if there was any question about that. And what else do you think about the walk? You can see toe off, a little bit of toe off. Not straight-legged yet, so go for it.
We saw the toe off before, and a little, the heel strike with a little bit of toe off, which we saw in the previous video back in December. So a lot of the stride looks kind of similar. And the first thing I did with, my engineering mind here is that I wanted to know, well, how fast? And so I saw immediately that the clip was 15 seconds. Like, okay, we've got a time basis here. Now, how far is Optimus walking? And I realized that there was no way I could there's no yard markers or anything like that, but we can count the steps. And unless I miscounted, it looks like it does 20 steps in 15 seconds. And each of those steps seems to be literally a foot, an Optimus foot anyways, which we're assuming is around 12 inches. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's more like 14 inches or maybe it's 11 inches, but I just went with that. If you go with that, it's pretty easy. It's 20 over 15 is 1.33 feet per second. Okay? Right. And if you convert that to like miles per hour, if Google does it right, I was really kind of lazy. I said, go ahead and convert this to miles per hour. You get just under 1 mile per hour. You get like 0.9 mile per hour, which is actually a little bit slower than my estimate of the reveal, where that one, I think I came up with like about 1.2 miles per hour or something like that. I think it was a little bit over that mark. So, and it could be, why is it slower now, for other tests? But I think it was pointed out that earlier on, the upper part of the body, the torso and everything, was using more end to end. And they may still, for the walking, have been using a normal kind of control system. And Herbert speculated, they said, well, wait a minute, maybe this is actually end-to-end walking. I'm like, wow, that's a possibility. So even if you're not impressed with the speed, it may be if they're using a completely different way of doing the gait, then that's kind of important. I think the other thing that, after Elon complaining
FYI, this is quarter speed, 1/4 speed.
Quarter speed,
yeah.
So after Elon complaining about the competition, doing a frame-by-frame analysis, he's going ahead and taking the covers off.
I know.
Now, there was a lot of things that we couldn't tell before with the covers on. But now we can look at. One I haven't quite been able to get. I'm still trying to zoom in and get the analysis. And every time I try to find a frame that I want, it's out of focus. And then it's a little hard to zoom in and look. So first of all, we couldn't really see how the legs were. We knew how the legs were designed before because they showed us a bunch of PowerPoints, but it was covered up with the covers, why they're called covers. And now they're off. We can actually see what that mechanism looks like. But what's interesting from this is they keep on talking about lighter and tighter. Definitely those motors down there for the hip, basically the hamstring, and they look smaller.
Yeah.
They don't look as big and bulky as they were before.
The entire body, you realize just how little there is of this guy when it doesn't have its shell on top, because it, it makes it look, it's sort of like, I guess like a human skeleton when you take off the fat and the skin and the muscles on the outside. It's just
much
like
skinnier, much skinnier.
Yeah, it's very
because if you think about it, some of those bots, like from I think Unitree and others, they look really skinny. I mean, they look like sticks.
Yeah,
compared to Optimus. And now Optimus is starting to look a bit more like a stick because everything's been slimmed down.
Exactly.
The shoulder, which was covered up, we were speculating it's the same shoulder. We just couldn't tell. Now we can tell that for sure. The shoulder is using the same kind of yaw patrol mechanism, this serial 3 joints kind of connected together.
But with some like nice dressing, this area here, it looks like cable dressing and stuff.
How they probably do the routing of the cable.
Yeah. Right, that's what I'm saying. So that's really, really nice. It's much better dressed than it used to be.
It's built in. So even now we do see there's a little bit more exposure of the cables now, so we can see how the covers are able to kind of hold them and contain them really quite nicely.
Right.
On one of the other views, when we get back to the shoulder, I think we will see that it is mounted at, I'm guessing, about a 7-degree angle, because before the first axis of the shoulder was completely parallel to the ground. Now it looks like it has just a little bit. It's very hard to tell and to confirm. And
you have to be kind of on the front view. So these are all still frame shots that I just snagged out of the thing.
Great.
So, I'm just doing my best here. They're not perfect, and it's video, so it's not going to be. So here you.
So it's hard to tell. There's like just a little bit there, but and the covers were kind of indicating that the way the covers are sloped around the shoulder. And so I'm assuming the covers are actually following the profile. But, now that I'm looking at it, I was like, maybe it really is horizontal. Is it like a trick of the eye with the covers? Maybe not. I suspect there's a little bit of an angle there. Now we can clearly see the fans. That are there to do the cooling for the battery.
Air cooling. Well, not air cooling. It's probably cooling the liquid that's going around the battery.
I think there's liquid. Yeah, I think someone said that it's at first they were using air cooling, and now they're using liquid.
But they still have to have a fan to blow across the liquid or the radiator.
Now, my understanding from Jordan is that the cooling is probably more important for the charging than it is actually for the operation. There will be a little bit, but I mean, if you think about usually with the battery pack and everything else, you're thinking about a lot of the energy that's coming from there. But most of the heating of the bot should be throughout the entire body, so not just there. But in order to charge at a high rate, you need to have good active cooling.
I don't see, it's really hard to tell, but I don't think I see the fans on the other side. So, I mean, I don't think there's
they're there as well. It was hard to tell. There was for sure on the other side, and there it gets a bit blocked.
Let's see.
But if you kind of notice that where the heat's going to be coming out, it's basically coming in the underarm. In the armpit area. So I'm just kind of doing, just like a human, it's going to have sweaty armpits. No doubt about it.
Also, we get to see exactly how it's tethered now, because it used to be attached through the top of the head, but that's not the case anymore.
And why not? John, why can we not tether it to the head anymore? It's got
extra range of motion, and you don't want your chiropractor to lift your head up, lift your body up by your head. You don't want to do this anymore. You'd probably
basically you have actuators that are holding the head on to the rest of the body, and the actuators you don't want carrying the entire load of the rest of the body there. So the neck area is very weak now compared to the Gen 1. So now you have to do it there.
Well, one thing I will say, compared to like, I'm thinking about Figure and Sanctuary, and I think Agility, they all have very large sort of backpacks hanging off the back, and Optimus this is a pretty refined design, because even the biggest part with the batteries and the CPU, GPU, the FSD chips and all that stuff is still very thin. This is impressively.
And I just wonder what that one block is that's poking out in the back.
Yeah, it looks like I'm wondering if that's the charger, like some sort of converter or something it's like, I don't know. We still don't know how this thing charges.
Well, my speculation, again, this is speculation, is that the entire apparatus is DC. So there's no need for any AC converters in there for standard operation.
Right.
The only reason there's are AC converters in your Tesla is to be able to do the charging. That's it.
Yes.
And to convert the AC current that's coming in to DC to charge your batteries.
And so you could build
you could build that into Optimus, but you wouldn't want to. Now, instead, I mean, our phones and our e-bikes and our laptops have these external bricks that do that conversion for us externally. So we don't have to lug that around as part of it. So I suspect that as much charging infrastructure as possible is going to be offloaded from Optimus, and there will be a DC input somewhere. And I was thinking the possibility, and maybe not, depending on how that cooling is done, that you would have a coolant loop potentially that you could plug in. So if you really need to get a lot of power in there, you would do it. And then the current loop could be kind of external to do the cooling and then run it back in. That's a possibility. That's also a complicating factor. Now, this is not going to be able to be plugged into a 250 kilowatt supercharger. The battery pack is too small for that. It cannot handle that amount. Again, according to Jordan, and I will trust his numbers, he's saying that it's somewhere between 7 and 8 kilowatts maximum.
Which, what would that be on a 110 at 10 amps?
Well, that's going to be small on the 110. That's basically level 2. And that's like 220, 24 amps, somewhere around there. This is it. No, 32 amps. Yeah. If you go to like 220, 48, you get close to 10 kilowatts. So it's sort of like the maximum that a level 2 charger could do. Right. That would be the maximum it would be able to absorb.
Right. But it would easily be able to charge in a reasonable amount of time on a household outlet. Like that's
on a household, it will take a little bit longer. So if you're running on that, you can charge it in under an hour. But you would need the cooling. Without the cooling, you would have to charge it slower. I mean, you can always charge it on 110 and it probably wouldn't be that bad. So if you get like a 110-15, you could do it. But and of course, it also depends upon where you are in the charge curve.
Yes, exactly. That's true. Yeah, by the end of it, it's going to be charging slower anyway. Right. But we also don't know LFP versus nickel NMC batteries. So there's lots of different possibilities.
I don't think it's LFP. It's I'm pretty sure it's NMC. And Jordan also makes a pretty good reason for that is that you could say, well, the longevity and everything with LFP can go from 0 to 100% and everything like that. So they can go from 0 to 100%. The problem is it takes just as long to go from 0 to 100% as it does with MNC because you've got that same charge curve.
Exactly.
So the advantage of the LMC is that, you don't use the top 10% and the bottom 10%, but you get the favorable charge curve. So if you're concerned about bot utilization, you want to have something that can charge that amount of energy faster, and having the lighter pack makes more sense. It's possible you could still get pretty good longevity out of the MNCs, especially with like possibly some special chemistries that they may be doing. So that's something to discuss. Is I think in the future you may be looking at battery chemistries and battery form factors, which are really being customized for human bots. I don't know. Maybe like a prismatic cell makes more sense for a human bot versus going into a car.
Exactly. The other thing is that you have to remember that they can software limit this thing to 90%. So they can say you've got 2.3 kilowatts and it's actually a 2.5 kilowatt battery, but you can't access that top 10%. And that will make it last a long time because it's mostly user error and repeatedly charging it to 100% that's going to crush it. And for something like this, you just don't tell the user that they have that option. So, you're just like, this is what you got. And it's not as important in a humanoid bot as it is in a car because you might want that extra 30 miles of range or whatever that last 10% is. But for a bot, it's not going to matter that much.
The other thing is the bot, you can go down to 5%, even 2%,
very
and not
easily.
worry because the charging post is going to be right over there, as opposed to, it's 10 miles away. So I think you can potentially use more of the battery. It's just then going to come down to longevity and how long it's going to take to charge.
What I'm saying is you can restrict it to a good part of the curve, and that 90 to 100% is the killer. Like it's not good for longevity. So basically, if you just software limit the robot, and it's just like you can never charge it above 90%.
Oh, you'll be fine. You're fine. And I've got a spreadsheet for it, and we're gonna do it. We could do a video about it at some point to dig into that and what exactly would be the best way to be able to get maximum utilization out of your bots if you're looking at 8-hour, 16-hour shifts, or even a 20-hour shift. So if you look at it a bit closer,
I was going to look at his wrist here because this is really interesting to see it exposed, and you can see those two. What do you call those joints that have the slop in them?
They're like what do I call them? Eye bolts, I think is like one term. There's a bunch of different terms for them. They're like a spherical joint.
There's basically slop so that the hand can.
Basically, it can kind of rotate in 3 dimensions, but one of them you kind of lock out because you've got the eye bolt that comes around there, and you lock the rotation this way.
Right.
And so then you have the other part that comes in there that's kind of a spherical joint, and
Right.
it has almost full range of motion in one axis this way, and the other one it's limited to maybe 15 plus or minus, because then you kind of get in some mechanical issues there.
Yeah,
things will
'cause
just
it'll
kind of
lock.
bind up again
These
in the way.
things will
Yeah,
eventually bind,
it'll lock up, and that's fine, because what you want is you want that full range of motion this way, which is a
Right.
lot. So you go
Right.
way enough there, and then the other one that gives you this, and it's about the same as the range of motion for a human hand.
Right.
So it's
Right.
it's perfect. It's
Yeah.
perfect for that, and we can definitely see how they sloped the drives down a little bit. That angle is coming
These guys
in,
right here.
and that allows the wrist to be more
Yeah.
narrow. Yes,
Yeah.
because
yeah.
they used to be parallel, and as a result of that,
Yeah.
the wrist
Yeah.
was much wider.
Right.
And now that's been able to narrow down to be a little bit better.
We've got
Um,
Optimus the Sailor Man. It looks like Popeye is going to have the big forearms.
Yeah, yeah, looks pretty good. And then
Yeah.
also looking over at the hip area and the pelvis area, those motors and everything look a lot smaller than they were before.
Yes. This is
They
very
definitely
compact
have
now.
tightened them up.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
So
I think again,
can
let me back it off just a little bit, but it's always hard to tell because it's all black, but it looks, again, the center of rotation is slightly lower than a human because you've got the hips and where all the
well,
stuff
the center of
happening is
rotation for the
slightly
hip,
lower.
you've got to go down
Yeah.
even further.
It's like kind of down here, right?
It's down. Well, yeah, if you go down a little bit further, you'll see one of those dots there, up a little bit higher. It's almost right in there.
Yeah. It's just hard to tell exactly what it's
Right there,
rotating
right there,
on. But
right
somewhere.
there.
Yeah.
It's basically right in there. So that's
Yeah.
where the rotation is for that joint.
Right.
And then of course you have like a vertical rotation up there. So it is much lower, and we
Right.
see it walking. You're going to see it moving around there.
And this is primarily because, of course, the sort of like leg spreading motion, like this kind of motion, is up
Mhm,
here, which is where a human hip would be more or less. So you
Yes.
can't have all those you can't have all those axes of rotation at the same place. So this one is
Yeah, it's
off
really
the
tough to combine them together and have
which
them
makes him
powered.
look like he has a little bit shrimpy legs compared to the size of his back, but he just wears a small.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a long back and he wears a small inseam pant. So
Yeah.
but of course
It's a
also
bit low,
yeah,
which
you
means
notice,
you're going to
of
have a
course,
smaller stride. So
exactly.
that's going to be one thing that'll make it a little bit tougher to get higher speeds out of it. Is
Yeah.
if the legs are that short, you
That's true.
can't quite get the
Yeah.
longer stride.
Yeah.
But that'll be okay, because aspirationally they talk about 5 miles per hour, not because they want to go 5 miles per hour. That was the limit.
Right.
He said no faster than.
Yes.
Okay, you
Yes.
don't need 5 miles per hour in the factory. You only need about 2.5 to 3. That's it.
Right. Right.
And so it should be good enough to be able to get that.
Yeah. And again, your
now-
estimate is currently he's walking about 1/3 of the speed he needs to be walking in.
Yeah, it needs to go about 3 times faster, and it would be like 2.7, something like that, which would be good enough. One thing we couldn't tell with the covers on before is whether they had changed the elbow mechanism, and I
Right.
haven't been able to see any good shots. If you've got a couple we can kind of blow up to confirm that it hasn't really changed.
Yeah.
I don't
I don't know
think
if it's
it
better
has,
to look
but
at it from the front.
It looks a
or-
little different, so I'm not quite sure if we can see exactly how it's done.
It's just like
it's
if I
so
zoom in too much,
compact in
it's,
there.
it's all blurry. This is interesting
Yeah.
though, because it looks like there's a heat sink in the front, so you can see the fans very clearly over here now.
Yep,
I assume that the batteries are in the back and the GPU, CPU, FSD
Probably. Yes.
because this is probably a heat sink for the main FSD
Mhm.
chip. So, but yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing one axis of rotation there. That would be the main elbow, and then sort of the forearm axis of rotation that allows the forearm to go like this,
Right.
down here. So,
And I'm trying. It's hard for me to see where that mechanism is there, because I know what
Yeah.
it should look like, but there's so much going in there, and we don't have quite the right
It's
perspective.
definitely not helping because remember the old one had the like sort of what were you calling it? It had that black thing that was going over the top, pleated. It had that
Yes,
whole
yes.
thing that went over the top for a long ways, but it doesn't. I don't really see any particular need for that here, unless
Yeah.
the actual axis of rotation is back here a little bit further than I'm. Yeah, that actually is true. So it's back there, but then that sort of pleated area kind of came down in this area down here. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I'll have to do some comparisons. Again, this is like a really quick hot take, so we haven't had a chance
Yeah,
to really
exactly.
break everything down. But
Right.
that makes
And of
sense.
course,
Is
if somebody eventually can get a better quality, like, because the problem is when you're doing screen grabs, you can see there's motion blur and stuff like that, so it's not perfect.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and the funny thing is remember a few months ago they put in 2x the ability to download whatever the video is that someone puts
Yeah, I
out there. And
know.
of course they can in this one, there's no download capability, so
No.
it's been locked. So so at least the competition has to go through a few more steps
Yeah.
to be able to see anything. And again, it's like, man, I can't believe they took the covers off because they really are showing how everything's being done.
I know, it's
Now
crazy.
the whole hip area, everything there looks much more compact than before.
Yeah.
Definitely
Yeah.
much lighter.
And again, we do have some cabling that's exposed now that the covers are off, but it looks again like we've got some sort of like chaseways or something like that, that they're raceways or whatever, that these guys are inside. So some of the cabling has been tucked in. You can see more of the cabling out here now that the forearm covers are off and everything. But generally speaking, even with the skin off, it looks pretty good. There's not a lot. It's not like Bumblebee or anything like that just had pieces sticking out all over the place. So he's looking pretty effective.
Yeah, I'm almost doing a bit of a flex there to show everything.
Yeah, exactly. It is. And of course, we've got the classic problem of all robots since time began, which is they can't walk with a straight leg. Actually, can you talk about that to some extent? My understanding it's a center of gravity thing, but maybe it has to do with the joints and the inability of them to maximize. But I mean, his elbows are fully extended, so those are straight. Those are
okay, so if we're going along there, so the knee never locks up.
no,
it should
and I
be
can go
able
back
to.
and show you. No, it definitely does not. I watched the motion, and you can see here it's always slightly bent. And I can go back and I can show. Hold on, let me stop sharing for a sec and present the other one. Back to this one. So yeah, so I'll start playing this again. And so you can see down here that the legs never straighten out. They get, close-ish, but it's never locked out like
Yeah, they always have a little bit.
So yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see if they can get a little bit more out of that motion.
Right. And I love the hip shift and everything. I mean, this really is starting to look like it's slower than a person, but it's really starting to look like a person. So maybe this is kind of an neural network. If that's true, if they've got controls out and this is basically using quote unquote FSD 12, that would be damn impressive. Because that would mean that we're now, because, with a car, again, it's turn the steering wheel, press the accelerator or brake pedal. That's it. With this, there are many, many more output controls. So this would be very impressive if this is end to end. But anyway, what I'm noticing is that there's hip motion that's adjusting. It's shifting the weight back and forth, and it's rotating the hips both roll wise, and also it's yawing them, and it's just doing a lot of very subtle stuff.
The arm, and the hips also kind of include the torso because they are part of it. So we see the torso is swinging back and forth as well as the arms.
Right.
And
and the
do you
arms
see any head motion?
Do
you see it bobbling a little bit, or it seems to be pretty steady? It's very hard to tell.
I don't know that the head's moving at this point. Because yes, in a human, if I was teaching this as character animation, you would have the head counter rotate. But I would love to be able to see this top down and watch it moving top down. So what I'd love to have is, of course, a side view, a front view, and a top down view, and all synchronized with each other.
Yeah.
So that you
can you run it at real time?
Yeah.
Just so we make sure we get kind of an idea of the fluidity. Yeah, there we go.
So you can see it's a little jerky still. It's like, it's moving up and down slightly as it's walking, but it's got a lot. It's not striding. It's walking like if you kind of hurt your back or something and you were trying to walk gingerly on it. It sort of feels like that. Or if you just got done with leg day and your legs
because at this point it almost seems like there's an instant where both feet are really planted on the ground before it goes up. So it could be moving a little bit quicker there. It just seems like there's almost like an instant where it's standing still and then makes the next step. Whereas the previous version seemed to me like it kept moving forward a bit more. So it's like almost a little hesitancy, or at least it's flat.
You can see that with the upper body too. If the upper body's back forward, forward. It's kind of that moment when the feet lock down. And
there's definitely room for improvement. So I can see little things there that
the head is definitely
if they
not moving.
get it, they'll then get a lot more mechanical advantage out of that and be able to move forward at a more brisk pace.
Right. So again, we don't know. I mean, this is what is Elon's post here? It's like going for a walk with Optimus. That's what we got. So
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing
if
is
this
that
is
everyone was
control of,
wondering.
neural net single
Yeah.
end-to-end neural networks. If it's end-to-end neural networks, then we're talking something really major happening here. That would be very impressive. So yes, sorry, what were you saying?
Well, basically after the chancellery verdict today, everyone just like was wondering, my goodness, what's Elon doing tonight? Well, we know
he's
in
taking
the
a walk with
Optimus lab and he's looking at everything, and basically he's not letting it distract him. He's just moving ahead. Now, I think the funny thing with that yellow tag there is everyone's speculating what's on the tag.
Right.
And I tried looking as close as there seems like there's nothing on it. There's like no writing or nothing. I thought there'd be something like this is Optimus 1 or Optimus 2. And it's like, I thought it would be like removed before flight, but it's the wrong color. So it's kind of funny what it's doing there. What's the point of that? Or maybe it's to let the engineers know that that's the left hand or something like that.
Right.
You know, like, they can't tell the left from the right. Say that's the left arm, the yellow one. Yeah. Okay. Just a joke
giving
about
us a
engineers.
nice sense of like the way the arm is bumping it though, and the way it's like
moving a little bit. So, now, every time you get a Tesla video, you got to remember is do not be distracted by what is the center of attention. Look at everything around.
That is
true.
So
I tried ignoring Optimus as much as possible.
Well, there's
to see what I could see.
I'm pretty sure.
And I think X in the background.
Yeah.
I did not see any other bots.
Right. I'll tell you what the big Easter egg here though is look at the length of this thing that they're tracking. That is very, very long.
It's a pretty big area there. Yes.
Yeah.
It's
that
a
means
very
that
big
they're
area.
really working on, they're working on having him move long distances and potentially set up robot stations, things like that. So is that
there's a lot of space? Yeah.
So there's a bunch of people just when it comes back around again, let me stop it. Last time when he was folding laundry, there was a person who was operating him. And now all of a sudden I like have this weird, I don't think this is true, but I have this weird suspicion that guy right there.
A lot of people speculated that too. Is there a hand controller there or something like that?
Yeah, it's a little difficult to know. Let me see if I've got a screen grab of that. I may have, I wasn't really looking for that, but maybe I caught, let's see, I can go back. Well, that guy definitely is carrying something. Okay, let me go and switch the sharing thing. This would be interesting if that's the case. So, okay, stop. Sorry, I can only do one at a time, which is very annoying. I wish I could switch back and forth. Something you guys can work on for StreamYard. I love StreamYard, but that is one like problem I've noticed. So, I mean, he is whatever that is, he is carrying some object. It doesn't look like a remote because usually those have those little rabbit ears that are sticking up or something like that to like project a radio control. So if it is walking motion, it is also possible he's just got like kind of a safety mechanism that's just like stop start, like a
could be the e-stop button. Who knows?
Because this is certainly he's not doing enough. Because I was watching him, he's not sitting there like moving joysticks back and forth. And good God, if he was, he would be the most talented person in the world if he was controlling the entire robot with 2 thumbs. So he may be the guy that's like go stop or something like that. So he's controlling it. I did notice that Optimus does not have a he doesn't seem to have a stop button on his back anymore. So
I sort of didn't notice that either.
I was looking. Let's see if I can find it. So I mean, you can see right here where the tether is and all that stuff. That there used to be a big old red stop button there, so that's not there anymore. So I don't know if they decided that there was a software solution, or maybe they're just using large language models and they just yell stop at it. So
could be. Sure, and now go back to that image. I want to see if we can get a close up of that elbow at all. It's okay, and it's just so messy in there. I can't.
I want to see one where his elbow is bent a little. This actually is a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, it's never really bent enough for us to be able to tell.
Yeah, but there are weird little, doodads sticking out in random places.
Okay, let's see. Does that look like that would be it there?
So this would be the lower arm. This would be the one that
that's the lower arm. That's the roll. That white. That's the white motor that you see in the top there, and that rotates it along the axis of the bone.
Right.
And then
let's just go from the shoulder. Okay, so we've got the lifting this motion. Then we've got the twisting motion right here.
Yep.
And then we move down to axis of rotation somewhere in there.
Yeah, now that's done with a linear drive. It certainly was done that way in the past, and I think it still is. I don't see anything there that would do. There's not a rotary drive in there. It's just hard to see. And I was wondering the last time, because of the way the pleats and everything were there, whether they changed it around a little bit.
Right.
And it's possible that they did the same idea, but they realized, oh, we want to put the bar mechanism on the other side.
Yeah.
They may have done that, which is why I thought, they had such a big pleated area on the inside of the elbow as opposed to the outside of the elbow.
That upper drive that's in the bicep area is very hidden. Like even without the skin on, it's very hard to see. Like these guys are very exposed down here. But
I can see that, but I cannot see it clearly enough there to tell where the entire mechanism is. I'm pretty sure they're still doing it the same way.
Yeah, so let's see. And then the other option that we had talked about, gosh, I hate that there's so much motion blur. But the other option we talked about was just some flexibility for cabling to be able to move back and forth and in and out and slide. But again, I don't even see that. They're just, again, it's very hard with all this motion blur, but that one's a little bit better. I guess there is some cabling here. So maybe the idea is they just got, they just need a little room for the cable to move around without getting pinched. So, yeah, interesting. This is really interesting. Look how flat that whole, there's like just a shelf there where the girdle is. I love the fact that there's no front girdle anymore. So it's basically like a human hip, which is open in the front. So they've come much closer biomechanically to a human, and it's probably going to allow it to have a little more flexibility in terms of the way the hips are able to move. And
certainly they lightened it.
Yeah, this actually shows. So the head definitely is not moving. I was watching that as it was walking, so it looks a little awkward because the head's not counter rotating as it should be. But you can see the torso here is quite off balance. Like this is lifted, so it means it shifted the weight over to the bot's left hand side, and it's rotated. So it's actually walking properly here. Very cool. And I mean, again, it has to, because it's a physical object, and there's only certain ways that physical objects can move unless they want to fall over. So, for people who don't know, I mean, walking is a series of falls. That's all it is. You're just falling. Yeah,
it's basically a controlled fall.
Yeah, which is like why if you hit your foot on a root or something, you go, you go stumbling forward or fall flat on your face because you are already.
Well, you still managed to recover.
Yeah. So
now let's see what time this was. I'm trying to think what time that would have been in Palo Alto.
Well, so about 6:30. Yeah,
it would about 6:30 there. So I'm wondering if this is like just everyone staying very late at work, or if it's like the evening shift that's starting to go through. I don't necessarily, looking at some of the people that are there, I don't see any familiar faces from the team, which means this could be like another crew and that they have a pretty large number of people. The other thing I'm expecting is later tonight, maybe there to be a tweet from, a post. I'll never get over that. From Elon, because he did that. Also. Yes. So keep your eye out for that. He may have a little bit more details about this.
Right.
And I guess we can maybe start expecting, Elon sort of said every now and then we will give video updates, and here he is. True to his word, within a week, and then maybe we should start seeing these almost weekly.
Yeah, another interesting thing back here, and I don't know this for a fact at all, but the way that these trusses are all set up and these little cameras and stuff, this really looks like a mocap rig. So
yes, exactly.
I would guess that they might have these people that they're hiring that are between. What is it?
You want to say what a mocap is for the audience?
Motion capture. Yes. So it can use these cameras. Often you put dots on your body, like on a suit. And then I don't know exactly what.
And the thing is sort of funny. I was thinking when I saw the Optimus, I'm seeing lots of dots on there, but I'm realizing I think that they're actually just there for mechanical reasons. So the first thing my eye thought about was like, whoa, wait, is that like motion capture?
Well, but what you could do with the mocap, of course, is you can capture humans. So you can record humans walking around, stacking things, walking. And again, we've got this very, very large space one of the discoveries I was thinking about was
stop right there. Stop, because this is also something else I noticed, that when he was walking along, you'll see in the kind of the upper right there, you'll see a black stand with a white rectangle on top of that. And there was like 2 of them over there, right
Are you
there.
talking about up in the truss area?
Nope, down on the floor. It's actually on the floor.
Oh,
There's
this
something
thing.
there.
Yes,
Yeah. You see that? That looks like it's. I think that might be like a theodolite or something like that, which could be used for being able to scan or track the movement or something. And there's a second one there. So when you do the motion, when you actually see the video, you're just going to see there's 2 there.
Whether Tesla's AI team might hate us. They might be like,
they're using that for measurement, position
no,
measurement.
I'm just saying they might be like, stop doing everything we're doing. So, but then we've got this guy over here with a portable like laptop or something like that that he's kind of able to walk around with. But my guess would be that one of the ways they're training the bot from looking at this entire situation is, I'm trying to see if I've got one from behind. Let me see if I can back this off a little bit. Shoot, it's not far enough behind. Anyway, but yeah, you can see the length of this. But if they really do have like this extended motion capture area, they can get people walking, cooking, stacking things in the factory. I mean, you name it, whatever they want, they can really do.
Well, if you look at that thing, that will just be an awesome holodeck room.
Oh,
I mean, there's plenty of room in there to do whatever. So
actually, maybe they need the Apple Vision Pro, and they can just completely AR it. But again, I think that my guess would be that they are not just using this for Optimus, and they also apparently have some cross beams and things like that they can tether it to. But I believe that they are probably utilizing this to get motion capture and then attach that to virtual Optimus skeletons, and use that as some very, very high quality input data for teaching it. So they may not need that many. I mean, you're right. There is these weird things. Could those be dots? I don't know. They might just be bolts. It's so hard to tell because there's
exactly. So a lot of that actually looks part of the structure, but
there are, look at that. No, the more I look at that, the more I think those are motion capture dots.
They're damn bright. All those dots are
look
bright.
Look at this. Why? Oh, this makes sense.
There's motion capture for sure.
So they're mocapping him as well. So they can mocap a human, but they can also mocap him, and they can do probably they can do loss functions. So imagine if you had, so what is he, 5'9"? I think that's right. So he's 5'9". You get a 5'9" person with the same dimensions. You put them in and have them walk down the floor for however long you want. Then you put Optimus in and have it attempt to replicate that. And then you take a mean squared error. You just subtract the dots, like essentially at every frame. It's like how far off was it from where it was supposed to be, and that's your loss function. It's a very straightforward loss function. So you could teach it pretty much. Oh my gosh,
they got the motion capture dots all over it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they're all over the hips. They're all over the knees.
Once you see,
you can't unsee it. Like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, can't unsee it.
Well, it's everywhere. I thought, I thought I was seeing that, and then I looked at somebody. There we go.
Even all the way back at the beginning when we were looking at his wrist, and I was like, why are those weird things sticking all the way out of his wrist? It's because those are mocap dots sticking out there. And
down in the hip joint as well. Two of those are motion cap. Two of them are actually the joints.
And I'm sure there's a couple on his knees, and there's definitely some guys down here at his ankles and his feet. So he is mocapped out the wazoo at this point. So so this is interesting because how did I not see this until now? So speaking of a hot take, and this looks a lot like, I remember there was a Giant Studio a few years ago. I got to tour there, and it was sort of like it was like a house size, but it was like a warehouse. So it was just a big empty room, and it had the whole thing was like set up for mocap. So it wasn't as long as this, but it was that similar sort of really, really large space.
Yep.
Oh man, and really once you see it,
everywhere.
I'm like, how did I not notice this until now? Boy, I'm embarrassed. But anyway, so that is cool. That's very, very cool that he is mocap. Also interesting that his head at this point is not, because normally what you do is you would put like a headband on the actor or whatever. So that means that's one of the reasons why the head is not being captured right now. And it could explain a little bit about why the gait is still imperfect, because part of what goes on, and your head weighs what, 20 pounds? I mean, it's not nothing. So as you're walking, how your head moves actually adjusts the way your body flows. So
I don't know, it's like about the size of a gallon of water, milk jug. Is that about 8 pounds, maybe 10 pounds?
Well, anyway, but I'm just saying it's not nothing, so that it could be causing.
Well, I mean, my head's full of rocks, I've been told. So it might be
It's
closer
extra
to 30
heavy.
pounds.
It's extra heavy. It's full of lead. But I'm just saying that, like, the fact that they're not mocapping the head would indicate that, because as a human's walking, they're going to kind of do, I'm exaggerating, but their head's going to move around, which means that it's going to affect the way the torso is. And so when you see the bot walking, it's going to look slightly awkward because it's not dealing with the slight head motions that are going on as you walk. So interesting. Yeah. Okay. I would call that a big win, that we have discovered that he's sitting in a mocap
Something.
room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And yeah. Anything else that you got for us? That's it's almost,
that's it. I mean, maybe we'll
midnight,
have more in the morning. I don't know. So we look at it again and again.
and hopefully Milan or somebody else will decide that they want to chip in and tell us more. So anyway, well, cool. Thank you so much, Scott. I love the fact that we're just talking like we're talking at midnight almost. And I'm going to wait till the morning to post this, because it would be ridiculous to try to post it this time of night. Nobody would watch it. But anyway, yeah, thank you so much. And I appreciate that. And anybody who knows or might have seen other Easter eggs in there, the theodolite is also quite interesting. I think that's very cool that they can get some very, very accurate measurements of whatever it is they're trying to do. So I think there's a lot of, also, this indicates to me that this is their actual, like, one of their labs, right? It wasn't in some sort of like demo room or something where there's just like, oh yeah, we'll put it over here to do a demo. It's like, no, this is like where they're experimenting with this and where they're doing simulations and everything. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, awesome. Thanks again. Everybody follow Scott's Going Ballistic 5. Obviously, you've been looking at that the whole time. And yeah, thank you, everybody. And let us know what you all think. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye now.